Love your suit.
Hello, beautiful people. I am Oliver Perrin, and welcome to A Safer Space, a space with no little brown unicorns, a space in which no one need fear being triggered, within which I am joined by Mr. Tim Rudisil, the man from high atop a mountain in Tennessee. And today we will be talking about the EU Army. Now, I haven't done any particular type of preparation for this. I don't know if Tim has either. I think we're just going to talk more generally about this subject.
I don't know that you could do any preparation for it because Mr. Macron keeps pulling it out of his asshole.
Yes. What did we have?
Out of his hat, excuse me.
Out of his hat. Yes, and we all know the French likely shit in their own hats.
Oh, my goodness.
I am of French descent, so don't take that seriously, people. We have a tweet from Donald J. Trump. Recently posted saying, President Macron of France has just suggested that Europe build its own military in order to protect itself from the US, China, and Russia. Very insulting. But perhaps Europe should first pay its fair share of NATO, which the US subsidizes greatly. So that maybe sets the stage for us to give some consideration to this. There's also the issue of migrants. Before we get started, as always, you know that there are two channels of mine on YouTube. One is A Safer Space and one is Semiagog. And there are analogs for both over on BitChute. I encourage all of you to subscribe over there because there is spicy content that will not be posted on YouTube that you will find there. And there is quite spicy stuff to come. There's also Minds. There's Gab. I think Gab is up and running again. There's Twitter. There's a Discord server. There's Patreon. Yes, I'm sorry. That's the last one I forgot. As always, thanks to those who support the channel. All of the credit and none of the blame. So we have the EU Army. And it occurs to me that there are all kinds of ways it could be used. It could be used to, once formed, to remove migrants. It could be used to lock down a leftist totalitarian state, which is apparently what the utopians in charge of the EU want. Yes. Control that arm.
I've had a stroke, Ollie. I'm trying.
Yes. And then there is the business of, heading south from Europe in the process of returning all these migrants and establishing a beachhead there and kicking ass and taking names in order to set the barrier to migration further south. So the battle is being fought in someone else's backyard instead of in Europe. These are just things that immediately occur to me. What the hell do you think is going on with this EU Army business?
I think Mr. Macron should grow himself a little tiny mustache right there in the middle, I really do. He's got the makings of a real fine dictator. Either that or get himself one of them sideways hats,
Yes, well, when you look at him, Martinet does come to mind.
It does. No, I see it as more of an attempt by Mr. Macron to save Angela Merkel and himself while welding together the nations of Europe.
And in what respect do you think that pushing for the EU Army could be construed as possibly being able to save them? I mean, Merkel's out within the next year or two, right?
To their own abilities. I will say that they're lost in their bubble. They're smelling their own armpits. There is no hope for an EU army. They can put one together, of course. Of course, they'll have to do it without Poland or Hungary, though they're trying to get it so that nobody can veto the army.
But are Poland and Hungary, I betray my ignorance, I wasn't aware that they're fully against it. Poland and Hungary seem to be for increased EU power and consolidation, but on a remade model where the nations individually have more power.
That would do away with the idea of an EU army, would it not?
Don't know. Depends on how you define that, But yeah.
It would be an army directed by the folks in Brussels, as opposed to by the nation states.
But I mean, that's kind of what NATO works out to be,
No, NATO works out to be something entirely different.
But don't they have their major headquarters? I think they're in Brussels, and if not, they're in some capital city.
Their major headquarters is in Brussels, but the guy with the actual deciding power is the United States of America. Don't let anybody fool you about it. NATO only does what America wants it to do.
So I could certainly see that the U.S. would not be interested in a European army because it changes their influence and power. They'd prefer to have the Europeans paying for NATO. And I can't see where Russia would want to allow it.
Oh, Russia doesn't give a fuck. Russia knows these people are floundering in their own slime. They haven't got the ability to bring together a real live European army.
Take it to church, baby.
I'm just telling you the truth. The thing is that European armies as such would have to be answerable only to Brussels. And nobody's going to give that up. Now, they can put together an armed force.
Rapid reaction.
Where are they going to get the soldiers from?
Each of the constituent states. I wouldn't imagine they'd have much problem getting them out of, France and Germany at this point.
Whoops, France and Germany, huh?
Well, that's the two biggest states,
Yeah. But that's not all of the European Union, is it?
No, indeed. Nor do I think that taken together, they outweigh the rest.
Uh-huh. Well, you see, the thing you got to remember is that Mr. Macron and Ms. Merkel and somebody else, I've forgotten who, showed up at this little known island, which is the burial site of a guy who wrote.
He's something with an S. Yeah. I saw that video, and they were basically lighting a candle for him, and he's one of these commies that saw that future vision of a united Europe.
Yep, and they put the flowers there at his tomb and declared a big celebration very quietly. It really doesn't matter, Ollie. The EU is doomed at this point. All it can do is thrash about a bit, heave its opulent $50 a glass champagne guzzling belly up onto the buffet and try to get some more puff pastries before they throw them all the fuck out of Brussels. It's coming.
It would seem that it's like an otter, right? When an otter wants to smash shellfish, it has to roll over on its back, and it needs two rocks, if I'm imagining that correctly. I think I am. But my point is that you got to have a rock and a hard place. And in order to bring the proper nut-cracking force to bear on Europe, it's going to require cooperation between the United States and Russia. And that, I think, explains the insanity, the mania of pretending Russia is such an enormous threat. Now, I'm not saying that Putin doesn't have his problems, and I'm not saying the Russians are nice guys, but given that Soros money and, Brussels and people like Hillary Clinton and Obama, they've all been working together, the one thing they don't want to see is, a rock and a hard place form, because that's exactly, in the form of the U.S. and Russia, and soon Britain, what Europe lies between. And when those jaws come together, it's likely to crack some fucking nuts.
Yeah, they're all going to be EU nuts, too.
But it raises the question, it would seem that we would then have to see some understanding reached between Putin and Trump as regards what's going to be done with Europe.
I like the way you phrase
And
that.
China wants to be at the table too, I do not doubt.
What's going to be done with Europe? This is why Viktor Orban is such an important fellow, because he's got some ideas about what will be done with Europe. It's going to be interesting to see them unfold.
Yeah, nobody seems to be of his caliber. I mean, Salvini has locked himself into place, but he, I give him credit for having fought his way up to the top of a heap in Italy, but he's not a great statesman. And I don't see,
Italy is such a shit heap, you could slide back down real quick having fought your way up.
Right. I'm saying, basically, I don't see anybody else in Europe as a statesman pushing the kind of program of like a new European vision. I don't see anyone who's the equal of Orban.
I don't either.
But now I'm not familiar with all the Polish politics. There may be somebody there. But
I doubt it.
If there was,
seriously.
we would have seen it, right?
Yeah. And Poland is a wonderful country. I love my Poles. They're responsible for Polish shoelaces,
I'm not sure what a Polish shoelace is. I suspect there's a nasty joke.
Velcro.
God damn.
Polish shoelaces. At any rate.
For those of our viewers in Europe who don't know, there's a long tradition of Polish jokes in the U.S. from the period when the Poles came in as immigrants.
Well, that's like the guy that was going to, kill his wife and then himself, right? Murder-suicide. And he pulls her out, holds her in front of the police and says, "If you don't back up, I'll shoot the bitch." And the cops went, yeah. He says, "All right, I'll shoot myself first."
Right. Or
so at any rate.
My favorite joke as a child was, how do you get a one-armed Polak out of a tree?
Way better.
Right. Yes. No offense to the Poles, just so you know the background.
None whatsoever.
Yes.
Sure. Oh, goodness. It's like Irish jokes, Well, we go into that some other time. The thing is that no matter how you slice this up, there's not going to be an EU army of any substance. No real substance at all, unless it's strictly a German and French army, in which case I've got an odd feeling that some of the French generals are going to come out of the woodwork again, like they did a few years back.
Yeah, that one who was really anti-immigrant and was verging on anti-EU, and they told him he better shut the fuck up.
Put him in jail for a while, as I recall. Yeah. But you see, the thing is that France and Germany have a long history of the military bucking. So I'm looking forward to some bucking. I don't see any way that the EU army is going to come together anytime soon. I see a way that Mr. Macron is going to be in there with Mrs. Merkel, going down for the third time. No big deal. I just don't see the EU military coming together. They are, without a doubt, the worst prepared army in the world.
Quote unquote.
They don't even share
army.
the same. Yeah. Well, the armies of all these nations don't even share the same weaponry.
Yeah, at least
they don't have the same uniform. They don't have the same anything.
Right. And you get, once you start looking like, as you know, I have a friend who's still in the military, and he's talking about, chain of command versus technical chain of command, and how, NCOs are basically like an HR department in addition to everything else. And when you begin to think about animals of that size, institutional organizations of that size, and trying to bring them together, it's a lot more than, 7.62 by 51 and, 5.56 standards. It's like you're talking about a uniform rank insignia. How do these people on a battlefield read their insignia? Because that shit matters to make the animal work.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It'll be a truly, truly glorious endeavor. I'm reminded that Napoleon had a problem like that once.
Forming his Grand Armée.
Mm-hmm.
He did a pretty fucking good job, even with the challenges, though. That was
Yeah, he
that
did.
was one badass Corsican.
Well, to be honest with you, his hat on the battlefield was worth a brigade.
I do recall that's a famous quote, is it not?
Yes, actually, it is.
No. I have not seen his like in recent days, so.
You aren't about to see it in Macron.
No. No, indeed. He left his clown suit at home.
Yeah, he did. The thing is that EU Army is a joke. I mean, if I were going to fight somebody in a war, I'd want to fight the fucking EU Army. And I'm sure that's how Vladimir Putin feels about it. I mean, can you imagine an EU army coming at you?
Yeah, I have, of course, nothing against the individual soldiers and individual armies. They're probably quite formidable in their own respects. I'd hate to have to go up against the Finns, They're pretty badass, or showed themselves to be so in the last, recent trouble. But, yeah, taken as a whole, fragmented like the mosaic that they are.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Oh, Christ. And can you imagine, like, Northwest Europeans having to be under the command of an Italian general or something?
Be easy work. Unless, of course, there was dinner involved, in which case there'd probably be lots of preparation.
Well, then I guess we have arrived at the point for your final words on this subject.
Well, I'm kind of interested in how you say, boys, let's take that hill in all the European countries and all the European languages. I'm really interested in how you say that. And I'm interested in how you say, I don't even know how you say it in French, but it was about the French rifles. They said it. Only dropped once, hardly any fired.
No, it was, would you like to buy a French rifle? It's only been dropped twice and never fired.
There you are, sir.
Right. I have French blood, so don't take it personally, people.
Oh, why not? Take it as personally as you like. Go join the EU Army. Add another language. That'd be good. I'm for it. Viva la whatever.